What is up, guys? We are back with another video, and today we're checking out another Z490 motherboard. This time it is the ASUS ROG Maximus XII Hero. So let's go ahead and take a look. Taking a first look at the Maximus XII Hero, it is a standard ATX motherboard, and it has what I like to call an all blacked out look. So you have a black PCB with black accents. All of the heat sinks on the board are black, and then you have these glossy elements, which make it kind of stand out a little bit. Starting at the CPU socket, we of course have Intel's new LGA 1200 socket. This will support current Core Comet Lake S processors as well as upcoming Rocket Lake S processors. Now, while this socket is not backwards compatible with, say, 9th or 8th generation Core processors, it is cooler compatible. So if you did have an older, LGA 1151 cooler, it will fit this socket no problem. The CPU socket is literally surrounded on three sides by heat sinks, all of which are connected by a large heat pipe. These heat sinks are of course covering the power delivery components, and ASUS is making use of a 14+2 power phase design that uses 60 amp power stages. With 14 power stages for the CPU, you have a maximum output of 840 amps. The board also features microfine alloy chokes and 10K Japanese-made black metallic capacitors. At the top corner of the board, you'll find your 8-pin EPS connector, which is metal reinforced, and then there's an additional 4-pin. Moving across the top of the board, you have your optional CPU fan header, the normal CPU fan header, AIO pump header, a standard 4-pin RGB header, a 3-pin addressable RGB header, and your postcode display. Coming over to the memory slots, we have 4 DDR4 DIMM slots, which support DDR4 memory up to 4800 megahertz. They do not have the locks on the bottom, which makes it easy to swap out your memory once you have a graphics card installed. Along the edge of the board, you'll find a large power button, flex key button, 24-pin ATX power connection, and a USB 3.2 Gen 2 header. The flex key button is actually pretty cool because it's remappable, so you can set it to do things like reset your system, switch Aura Sync on or off, boot directly into the BIOS, and much more. As we continue down the board, there's another 4-pin fan header, USB 3.2 Gen 1 header, 6 SATA 6GB ports, and water flow headers. The 6 SATA 6GB ports as well as the USB 3.2 Gen 1 header are all at a 90-degree angle. Along the bottom of the board, you have the rest of your headers and connections, which include your front panel headers, 4-pin standard RGB header, 3-pin addressable RGB header, retry button, TPM header, 2 USB 2.0 headers, temperature probe header, 3 4-pin fan headers, and your front panel headers. The bottom half of the board is basically one large heatsink, which encompasses the chipset heatsink as well as the M.2 heatsinks. There are a total of 3 M.2 slots on this board. 2 sit together while the third is further down. The top and bottom slots support M.2 SSDs up to 110 millimeters, while the middle slot only supports SSDs up to 80 millimeters. Remember, these slots support both PCI Express as well as SATA M.2 SSDs. As far as expansion slots on the board go, you have 3 PCI Express 3.0 X16 slots, which are X16, X8, and X4. And then you have 3 PCI Express 3.0 X1 slots. Remember, if you are gonna run dual graphics cards in this system, they will both run at X8 speeds. The top 2 PCI Express X16 slots are metal reinforced. When it comes to audio, ASUS is making use of their Supreme FX S1220 codec, an ESS ES9023P digital to analog converter. That will give you superior front panel output. And then you have a Texas Instruments RC4580 op amp for high gain with low distortion. Coming around to the rear I/O, we of course have an integrated I/O cover as well as an I/O shield. This is kind of standard these days on new motherboards. As far as buttons and connections on the rear I/O go, from left to right, you have a clear CMOS button, BIOS flashback button, 2 USB 2.0 ports. One is actually the BIOS flashback port, HDMI, 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, 1 gig Ethernet, 5 gig Ethernet, 4 USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports, 3 are Type A, 1 is Type C, 2 more USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, Wi-Fi antennas, and then your audio connections. The 5 gig Ethernet port is powered by the Marvel ACQ111C controller, and the Wi-Fi is of course 802.11ax or Wi-Fi 6. When it comes to RGB lighting, you have the ROG logo on the chipset heatsink, which lights up, and then you have the Hero logo, which is on the I/O cover that lights up as well. This RGB lighting is not too crazy in your face, and again, you have 4 more headers if you want to add more lighting. Of course, the lighting can be controlled by ASUS's software, or you can do it in the BIOS completely without having to install any software. I always love taking a look at ASUS motherboards, especially in their ROG Maximus line. It's like so refreshing because ASUS just knows what they're doing, they know their customer, and they put out a really great motherboard. And this board is just so awesome. I love the way it looks, and if you actually take a look at their Z390 version of this board, which is the Maximus XI, it's almost night and day design-wise. This board just looks so much better. Those glossy elements that ASUS has added in just look really, really good. And then the big change, of course, from the last generation is they beefed up their VRM. You saw the VRM cooling. We have heat sinks going around the entire CPU socket, almost all connected with a heat pipe. You have the 14+2 power face design, which is obviously going to be able to push, Intel's 10th generation core processor. So you have all of that. When it comes to a Z490 motherboard, you have everything that you would want, but ASUS kind of ups the ante a little bit. Instead of 2.5 gig LAN, you have 5 gig LAN. You of course have 802.11ax or Wi-Fi 6, so you have that there. If you like USB ports and you need a lot of USB ports, there's 10 USB ports on the rear of this board, so you can connect pretty much anything that you want, with I believe at least 4 of them being USB 3.2 Gen 2. It would have been nice to see USB 3.2 Gen 2 times 2. We saw that on a couple other Z490 motherboards, but I think you're getting so much in this board. You're also getting things that you just don't find on other motherboards, like water flow indicators, that flex key, which I think is incredibly powerful if you program it to what you actually want it to do. You have your postcode display, all of that. And we can't forget that ASUS has pretty much the best BIOS out there. If you're buying this board, I assume that you're going to be overclocking, and ASUS's BIOS has all of those fine-tuned things in there to, get the best overclock and more options that you would find from other BIOSes. So I really love this motherboard. I can't say, enough about it. It just has everything that you would want if you're an enthusiast or if you're an overclocker. And it is not all that expensive. $399 is pretty expensive for a motherboard, but it has so many features that you're gonna find on other flagship motherboards, and this is just the entry level into the Maximus XII line. So I just think that it has so much. If you wanna get into overclocking, or you're just an enthusiast, or you wanna tinker around, this board has so much to offer. Now, if you have any questions about this board, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. And I'll have links where you can go ahead and pick this board up, as well as our full written review that has all of our benchmarks and everything like that. Now guys, if you did enjoy this video, I would appreciate it if you hit that thumbs up. And if you enjoy our tech content, go ahead and subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next video.